A two-day session looking at the medical and recreational use of cannabis will be held by the Department of Social Development and the Central Drug Authority here in South Africa with the hashtag DaggaDebate that we started here at Newsroom. We've spoken extensively about this topic. We've also spoken to all relevant stakeholders about legalizing cannabis in South Africa on this very show, and we will continue to do so now as we pick up the baton in the next couple of weeks. So, to give us the latest around the DaggaDebate, we are joined from Durban by the spokesperson of the South African Cannabis Working Group, Mr. Andre du Plessis. Very good morning to you, Mr. du Plessis. Thank you once again for joining us.
Morning, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Andre, just tell us where we are now. It sounds like a real development, having a roundtable discussion on the use of cannabis in the country. It's a recent development now. Tell us, why is it so important to have this discussion right now, and what does this mean for the legalization of cannabis?
Evan, it's important to have this discussion for a start because as with cannabis control or regulation, there would be many government departments and spheres of government that would be involved in regulating and controlling cannabis. And naturally, these different spheres of government would have to speak with each other and have these roundtables to discuss the way forward. Now, the Portfolio Committee on Health mandated that the Medical Research Council, the Medical Control Council, and the Central Drug Authority have these discussions to plot a path forward so that we can figure a way to join the change that's happening internationally.
There's real change happening internationally. More and more states in America, they seem to be legalizing cannabis use, recreational and both medicinal use. But tell us about what's this debate here in South Africa doing. We now see the MCC, the Central Drug Authority, the Medical Research Council, everyone chipping into this debate. Are we finally seeing some alignment that we all have to come together to take this forward?
Even yes, it's actually quite encouraging to see government working with the stakeholders and people who are interested in affected parties with regard to cannabis in taking this roundtable forward. As you noted, in America, there's many states that are legalizing the adult use of cannabis and regulating and controlling that market as opposed to leaving it illegal. And these are countries that are signatories to the same international treaties that South Africa is. So you can see that there are limits of latitude that are allowed within the Single Convention Treaty that allows for regional control of certain drugs. You can't really expect one single central body like the United Nations to control a field of cannabis in the outskirts of KwaZulu-Natal. So that kind of control has to be given to a regional and local level, and these are the things that we need to discuss, along with the fact that we no longer sit and wait for government to give us the information about cannabis. If you were to just use Google or Bing or Twitter, you can inform yourself about cannabis and actually come up with a much more clear and concise opinion than the information available on government websites.
Now, let's just talk about the bills that have been drafted on legalizing cannabis here in South Africa. If I'm correct, there are two of them. Where are they now in this process?
Well, it was in fact the Portfolio Committee hearing on health that was discussing the Medical Innovation Bill. Now, the Medical Innovation Bill, I personally believe, is the worst cannabis bill on any parliament's table on the planet, because of its poor descriptions relating to cannabis and its definitions. That bill has been put on hold, thankfully, by the Portfolio Committee because there is the route that patients can take via the Medical Control Council of applying for a Section 21 application to get cannabis medicine for whatever ailment or disease that they might be treating. Now, the Portfolio Committee has insisted that the Medical Control Council make this more available for patients, and that's encouraging that they do that. So The only bill at the moment really that's worth speaking about, I'm afraid to say, would be the one that we've proposed, which is the Cannabis Control Bill. And as yet, well, we're going to propose it at this roundtable. It is based on international best practices, and I discussed it here in the newsroom once before.
Now, let's just talk about this. There's overwhelming interest from the public. Have the public really been able to give their sort of input in these bills, and what has the response been?
With the Medical Innovation Bill, they did call for public input, but between versions 1 and version 11, it didn't seem as if any input was actually afforded any of the South African citizens, so I'm not too sure about that. With our Cannabis Control Bill, we had over 250 people contribute to the working of it, including some international experts from the UK and the US that have been involved in bills in their respective countries. So our bill is based on international best practice, and it's a sound, practical bill for South Africa.
Now, Andre, this week, there is now a bit of movement with the roundtable discussions that's happening this week. Where can the public get involved with these roundtable discussions? And who do you, other than yourself and the Cannabis Working Group, who else will be involved in these roundtable discussions here in Johannesburg on Friday?
I haven't been given a list of the delegates that will be attending these roundtable discussions, but I'm assuming that it will be key government departments like the CDA, MCC, MRC, Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, Forestries and Fisheries, and I'm sure SAPS will be there too. As for the public getting hold of people and perhaps contributing, I would suggest that they get hold of the Central Drug Authority. Their contact details are on the Department of Social Development's website, and they should get hold of them and put their name forward and express their interest in contributing. There's, you know, as I said, Eben, these roundtables have got to discuss the various things regarding cannabis, the harms, the practicality, the pragmatic approaches to whether it's controllable or not. And your next article, which is coming up about alcohol, they have to be weighed in comparison to the social harms in society. Now, with regard to alcohol, for example, in the Western Cape, the most measurable statistic of a substance being abused is measured in the babies born with fetal alcohol syndrome.
Yeah.
Now, the Western Cape has the highest incidence of fetal alcohol syndrome, yet the female mayor and female premier of that province don't address this incidence of substance abuse recorded in infant births. And in their anti-substance abuse campaigns, they don't even talk about that, yet they talk about all other substances, including cannabis, as being a problem. Yeah. And they miss the most very obvious one.
Which is alcohol. Andre, I thank you for joining us today. We'll continue with this discussion throughout the rest of the week. And thank you for